Today I'd like to do a video on healing. How do you tell if your saw blade is healing through the cut, the vertical cut? Well, I think I have a method, and let's see what you think of it. Your comments, of course, would be appreciated. Let me redirect the camera to the saw. I'll zoom in a little bit if I figure out how to do that. Okay. Now, healing is when the carriage is running at 90 degrees to the fence, but where the blade is not running parallel with the arm. Okay? The blade here, the blade needs to run parallel to the arm. If the blade is canted over like this, then you're not going to get a nice cut. And it is my belief that if the blade is canted, the kerf you cut with the saw blade is going to be wider than it would be if there was no healing. So if you heal the blade around, it's going to pull through and make a wider cut or a wider kerf than it would if it passed straight through parallel to the arm. So let's see how that tests out. So the first cut we'll make, because most of the heel is going to show up at this level, at the widest part of your blade, where it's the full 8, 9, or 10 inches or 12 inches, whatever it is. That's where most of the heel is going to be manifest in the cut. If you're only cutting a 1/16 of an inch deep or so, there's not much chance for there to be any observable heel. So we'll jack the blade up until it's only cutting about a 1/16 of an inch deep. All right? Then we'll make one cut at 1/16 of an inch deep. I'm going to go a little shallower. I'm about an 1/8 deep. There's a 1/16 less. Okay. Now that's still a little too deep. I'll go a half a turn. Okay, that's about a 1/16 deep. Now we'll readjust the saw where it's cutting all but about the last half inch. I want to leave enough wood here in the bottom to where the thing doesn't open and close all by itself, but to where there's enough stiffness left. So we'll just crank this down until I have a good portion of that blade in the wood. I got about a half inch of wood at the bottom left. Now we'll cut another pass through. Okay. Now if I take calipers and measure this curve compared to the 1/16 of an inch curve, if they're the same, then I don't have any healing, in my opinion. Okay. I am at 89 thousandths, and that is let me see, 94, 90, and 90, and this one was 80. Let's measure in a couple different places. Okay, that's 90. Come on, missed it. 90. 87. Okay, and we'll measure these again. I am at 92, at 90, 91, 89, 92, and 92. So I'm about, as it turns out, these curves, for some odd reason, appear to be on average, a little wider than, sure does, appear to be a little wider on average than the deep curve, which that would indicate to me that there is really no healing in this blade. There are other ways to check it. Guys make jigs, and they'll anchor the jig to the table and then pull the blade across and see if it touches there and there at the same time, or within so many thousandths of an inch. I don't know. I'm a firm believer in your static adjustments, but I also believe that nothing tells you as much about your saw as a dynamic test, actually cutting wood and checking the results. And these results are pretty darn good. I just don't know how I'd get much closer. All the measurements on these three curves are within 3 or 4 thousandths of each other, and that's using this part of the caliper, and I don't know how much that is. If I was doing these measurements on wood, or I'm sorry, on metal, you wouldn't have the problem of the softness of the wood having an effect on the reading. So I'm within 2 or 3 thousandths in thickness on these various curves. So that's pretty darn good. So how do you adjust the heel on this saw? And all deltas are going to be very, very similar. I had to get a screwdriver, excuse me. You take off this cover. First thing you do is I might as well unplug it, because I'm not going to be sawing anymore. We'll lock the arm right here so it's not moving around. We'll lock the carriage on the arm, I mean. There are 2 screws to remove right here. And this cover comes off, exposing the carriage bearings. Here is what's called the index pin and the index pin housing. There's 2 bolts, one on either side of this pin, that hold this housing in place. These are also your adjustments for your heel. What you do is you do your static adjustment first with a square placed against, let me lower this down a little so you can see what I'm talking about, with a square placed against the table and the blade. And you do your static adjustment at a couple different places on the blade, and then snug these down. Then you would do your dynamic test and determine if you still had heel. Then you loosen these one at a time and then pull them over finger tight. Loosen this one, pull it over finger tight. Am I off the thingamajigger? You loosen this one and then put it back finger tight. Loosen this one and put it back good and snug finger tight. And then make ever so slight adjustments by tapping on the saw, ever so slightly. You might take this off and tap here, or you might tap back here, whichever direction you had to go. Snug those back down, and Well, of course, in order to make that adjustment, you have to loosen the carriage thing. Okay, make your adjustment, tighten it back up, and retest. And you just keep retesting until you've got similar results with a caliper. And if you don't have a caliper, you can use just about. I mean, you could use a stack of playing cards or feeler gauges or just about anything to measure these gaps. And once you've got it, you've got it. Put it all back together, and that's it. You're done. Very simple. D-walls are particularly, deltas are particularly easy to adjust the heel, the vertical heel. D-walls are a little bit more complicated. And well, I'm not going to put that back on. They're a little bit more complicated than the deltas, but nonetheless, on either saw, you've got lots of adjustment. So, thanks for watching. I hope this video on the dynamic test of heel was of some value. Thank you for watching.